Have you ever heard of Teke-Teke? They say she's looking for her legs. Every nation, every country has its own creepy stories. They can be funny and sometimes scary. Today we will talk about a Japanese urban legend. Molly was sitting at the table with her headphones on and eating cornflakes, every now and then getting distracted by her phone. Her friend Sarah was texting her. They were supposed to have a party tonight in one of the cottages outside the city. The friends had been waiting and preparing for this event for a long time, and finally, they had waited. Molly's brother Ben came into the kitchen with a creaking door. He greeted his sister and sat down at the opposite end of the table. Ben knew that there would be a party tonight and really wanted to go, but his sister flatly refused to take him because of his age. By the way, Molly was 18 and Ben was 16. Ben decided to try his luck again and turned to his sister. Molly slowly took off one earphone and looked at Ben with a serious look. Ben understood without words that he didn't even have to start. Ben immediately remembered one of the old Japanese legends. He understood that his sister would have to go home alone and decided to dilute her fantasy with a story. He slapped his palm on the table, which made his sister shudder and exhale nervously. Taking off her earphone, she stared at Ben. Ben, however, slid down the chair and with a sly smile began to lead to the story. He began the story. According to the legend, Reiko was run over by a train somewhere in Japan and cut her body in half. Her legs separated from her body, and now the woman uses her elbows to move, making a tek-tek sound, so they called her Teke-Teke. She looks for teenagers who walk in the twilight and kills them, using a scythe to separate their legs from their bodies. Thus, she looks for her legs. And to escape from her. Molly didn't believe in such a thing, so without listening to the last phrase, she put on her headphones and waved her hand at her brother to leave. With a satisfied grin, Ben left the kitchen, realizing that he had managed to sow a share of fear inside his sister. The party was already in full swing. The music was playing loudly in the cottage and it smelled of alcohol. The teenagers were having fun, drinking and dancing. After a while, around midnight, a strong wind blew and raindrops began to fly, and soon, lightning appeared. It was already 2 in the morning. The weather had not calmed down, which cannot be said about the teenagers. Some were going to go home, some stayed overnight right in the house. Since Molly was not that far from home, and she also wanted to get some fresh air, Molly decided that it would be better to go home. Having said goodbye to all her friends, she left the house and soon was already walking along the night highway. On the right there was a field with rye ears, and on the left a dense forest. Every 20 meters there were lanterns that illuminated a section of the road. It was a small oval. When you approached a lantern, you could not see what was at the opposite end of the light oval. Molly walked along the night highway on the left side, that is, on the side of the forest. The girl walked and listened to music. Everything was fine until she heard the crunch of branches somewhere in the forest. She pulled out the headphones and stopped, peering into the forest, not seeing anyone. She walked on until she remembered her brother's morning story. At that moment, the girl's heart began to beat wildly. She began to look around and reassure herself that this was just a fantasy. Putting the headphones back on, she turned up the music and quickened her pace. It seemed to her that someone was looking at her intently. Goosebumps ran down her back. The wind blew with renewed vigor, and a strong coolness blew from the forest. And suddenly, in addition to the music, a barely distinguishable word, "Nogi," was heard from the headphones. The voice was velvety and gentle. Molly pulled out the headphones and listened again. But not hearing anything, she switched the music, and this did not happen again. She walked, turning around every 5 seconds. Casually, the girl turned her gaze towards the forest and saw 2 glowing dots at foot level. At first, she thought it was a wolf or a fox, but her guesses were interrupted by lightning, which blinked and illuminated everything around for a moment. That's when the girl saw her. Long black hair, snow-white skin, many cuts and bloody hands with rubbed elbows. Her heart was almost jumping out of her chest. The girl jumped up and ran forward. Behind her, she heard the beats of tek-tek, tek-tek, but she did not dare to turn around. Suddenly, words began to come from the headphones. "Legs, legs, where my legs?" The voice was piercing and hoarse. Molly threw off the headphones and picked up the pace. Still, turning around, she saw something terrible. A girl in half, crawling on her hands at incredible speed after her, leaving a bloody trail behind her. Ahead, Molly S. She warned, but she didn't listen.